This still makes my stomach twist, but I feel like writing it out might help me finally breathe again. My girlfriend and I moved out of that apartment 6 months ago, and we still don't talk about it unless we absolutely have to. I've debated whether to post this here because honestly, I know how it sounds. But if even one person reads this and thinks twice before signing a lease that seems too good to be true, it'll be worth it. My name's Tyler. I'm 29, work in IT, originally from Ohio. My girlfriend, Madison, she's 27, smart, headstrong, works in digital marketing. We've been dating for 4 years, living together in a tiny one-bedroom in Queens, New York. Rent was killing us. It was cramped, noisy, and just uninspiring. We both work from home most days, and we're going nuts tripping over each other in that shoebox. One day, Mads finds this listing for a 2-bedroom in Astoria. Big kitchen, second floor walk-up, beautiful natural light, hardwood floors, too. $2,100 a month. That's a steal for the city. I asked her what the catch was, and she just laughed and said, maybe someone got murdered in it or something. Yeah. We toured it on a gray Thursday in September. It had rained earlier and the sidewalk still smelled like wet concrete and coffee grounds. The building was an old brick 3-flat, tucked on a quiet street between a laundromat and a closed-down Thai place with broken letters in the sign. The kind of block where nothing really happens. That's what I wanted. The landlord was this quiet older guy named Vincent. Wore a wrinkled Mets cap and kept glancing at the door like he wanted to leave. Didn't even show us the basement. But when we walked into the apartment, man, it was gorgeous. The place had this old charm to it. Wide baseboards, crown molding, creaky floorboards that gave off that smell of age, like sun-bleached wood and dust. There were 2 big bedrooms on opposite ends, perfect for our work setups, and a surprisingly huge kitchen with an original farmhouse sink and a little window over it that looked out onto an overgrown backyard. It wasn't modern, no granite countertops or recessed lighting, but it felt like it had character, you know? We fell for it. Hard. We signed the lease that same day. The first few days felt like magic. We had space again. Madison set up fairy lights in her office and got a little espresso machine. I finally had a desk that wasn't in our bedroom. We'd cook dinner together, have a glass of wine at the tiny table in the kitchen, and talk about how grown-up we felt. But I'm not writing this to tell you about how sweet it was. I'm writing this because the kitchen, the one we loved so much, turned into a nightmare. It started small. A fork went missing. No big deal, right? People lose utensils. Then the microwave would beep randomly, even when nothing was in it. Mads joked that it was haunted, but she was smiling when she said it. Neither of us thought twice. But then it got weird. One night, we were watching TV in the living room when we heard a loud clatter from the kitchen. Like a stack of pans just got dumped onto the floor. We both jumped up, thinking maybe one of the cabinet hooks had broken or something. When we walked in, everything was in its place. Every pot, every pan, perfectly aligned. But we both heard it. It wasn't just a maybe something shifted sound, it was violent. Like someone had thrown a skillet across the room. I remember the way Madison looked at me. Her smile was gone. She didn't laugh. She just said, that wasn't normal. I didn't want to spook her, so I joked about maybe the neighbors being loud. Thin walls. You know how these old places are. But she wasn't buying it. Neither was I, really. The next morning, she woke me up with a weird look on her face. Did you leave the spice rack on the floor? She asked. What? I walked into the kitchen, and yeah, the little bamboo rack we kept next to the stove, the one with all our spices, was tipped over onto the floor. But nothing was broken. Not a single jar open. It was like someone had carefully placed it down. But for what reason? That same day, the back door, the one that led to the fire escape, swung open on its own while we were both eating lunch. It was locked. We both saw the latch. We both heard it click when we locked it earlier that morning. And yet it just swung open like someone was walking through it. We started sleeping with the kitchen door shut. That helped for like 2 days. Then came the night I'll never forget. I woke up around 3:30 a.m. to what I can only describe as the sound of every drawer in the kitchen being yanked open at once. Then slammed shut. Then open again. Boom, boom, boom. Banging, rattling, clattering, like someone was tearing the room apart. The sound was so loud it felt like it shook the walls. I leapt out of bed, heart hammering so hard I thought I was going to pass out. Madison was already sitting up, pale as hell, clutching the blanket like it could protect her. We didn't say a word. I grabbed the bat from under the bed. Yes, I'm that guy. I keep a bat, and we crept down the hall. The kitchen door was open, but there were no sounds now. Just silence. Cold, awful silence. We stepped in slowly. The room was exactly how we left it. Nothing on the floor. No open drawers. No broken dishes. Just a weird, thick feeling in the air. Like standing inside a vacuum. The window was open, the one above the sink. But the screen was still in place, and it was latched shut. We didn't sleep after that. So after that insane night, the drawers slamming, the eerie silence, the open window, we started to lose it a little. Madison wasn't herself. She's normally the kind of person who rationalizes everything. Total realist. But now she'd freeze up at the sound of a creaky floorboard. She stopped going into the kitchen at night. Wouldn't even pour herself a glass of water unless I went with her. I wasn't doing great either. I started double-checking locks, putting things back in place like it mattered, like it would stop whatever was happening. I even started keeping the bat beside the couch during the day. Because yeah, I didn't feel safe anymore. Not in my own damn home. Then came that Sunday. It was late October, chilly and damp, the kind of weather where the windows fog up and the walls feel cold to the touch. I remember because I'd made soup, chicken noodle, and we were curled up on the couch watching some trashy dating show, just trying to have a normal afternoon. Out of nowhere, we heard a massive crash from the kitchen. It sounded like a cabinet had just torn itself off the wall and landed hard. We both jumped up. This time, no hesitation. We sprinted in. And I swear to God, everything was wrong. The big ceramic fruit bowl we kept in the center of the kitchen table smashed on the floor like it had been hurled. Bananas, apples, even a damn pomegranate were scattered everywhere. One of the chairs was knocked over, not fallen, thrown. It was on its side, several feet from the table. Every single cabinet door was wide open. And in the middle of it all, the faucet was running full blast into the empty sink. We stood there frozen, not breathing. I remember the smell, wet fruit, wood, metal, and something else. Something I couldn't place. Like hot electronics or burnt toast. You know that acidic, scorched kind of smell? It was sharp. Madison whispered, "What the F*** is happening?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. We turned off the faucet, slowly closed each cabinet. We picked up the shattered bowl and tossed it. Didn't talk much. Just did it like we were sleepwalking. We didn't call the cops. What would we even say? "Excuse me, officer, a ghost just destroyed our fruit bowl." That night, we barely slept. Around 2:45 a.m., we both woke up at the exact same moment. There was a sound coming from the kitchen. Not banging this time. It was humming. Low, mechanical. Like a refrigerator motor, but deeper, more human. Almost like a voice. Almost like a song with no words. Just a strange, droning hum that seemed to rise and fall in rhythm. We held hands in bed, too afraid to move. I swear to you, we just laid there for hours, listening to it swell and fade, like it was breathing. In the morning, it was gone. But Madison said something I'll never forget. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I don't think it likes when we eat." And that's when it hit me. The worst things always happened around food. The first time, we were eating lunch and the back door blew open. The next time, I was cooking soup and the fruit bowl exploded. Whatever this thing was, it was angry, violent, and for some twisted reason, the kitchen was its territory. The next few days were a blur of unease. Little things happened that kept us constantly on edge. The fridge door would be open when we woke up. A coffee mug shattered by itself while I was on a Zoom call. Lights flickering whenever we boiled water. We tried to pretend it wasn't real. Tried to laugh it off. But the tension between us was real. The silence grew longer. We started eating out more, just to avoid the kitchen. Sometimes we wouldn't talk at all during meals. Just chew and pray nothing flew off a shelf. Then came the boiling water incident. And after that, we stopped pretending. Oh yeah, the boiling water incident. I still get a cold sweat thinking about it. It was a Thursday evening, a little after 7. Madison was in her office finishing up a late call, and I figured I'd be nice and make us pasta. Something simple. I was trying to act normal, like if I kept pretending this wasn't happening, it would just stop. I filled the pot with water, set it on the burner, turned it on. Everything felt fine at first. I got the garlic out, started peeling it, half focused on some podcast playing on my phone. The kitchen light buzzed a little overhead. It had started doing that a lot, but I ignored it. Then the pot started boiling. Like, violently. Not a simmer, a full, rolling, frothing boil in less than 3 minutes. I blinked. That was impossible. I mean, it was a big-ass pot, and the stove was old as hell. It usually took forever. I moved closer, squinting, wondering if maybe I'd accidentally turned the burner too high. Then the water started bubbling over the edges. And I don't mean it was boiling up. I mean it was like someone was pushing it upward. Like hands under the surface, lifting. Like it was trying to escape. And then, boom. The lid flew off the pot and slammed against the ceiling so hard it left a dent. I screamed and backed into the fridge. Scalding water splashed across the stovetop, hissing, flooding the counter. The steam was thick. My glasses fogged instantly, and the heat felt like it singed my eyelashes. I ran. I didn't even turn the burner off. I just ran out of that kitchen, heart jackhammering, screaming for Madison. She came out, saw my face, saw the wet shirt clinging to my chest, and immediately ran to grab towels and ice. We sat on the floor of the hallway, shaking, me holding a bag of frozen peas to my arm. I'd gotten a minor burn, nothing serious, but it stung like hell and it scared the life out of me. Neither of us went back in that kitchen for the rest of the night. We ordered takeout, ate in silence in the living room, and for the first time, Madison said it out loud. "I think it wants us gone." She didn't sound crazy. She sounded resigned. Like she knew it, like deep down, we'd both known it since that first bang, that first missing fork. But saying it made it real. That weekend, we tried something I never thought I'd do in a million years. We contacted a local energy clearer. Some crystal-wearing lady named Elise who my coworker swore by. She cleansed my apartment after a breakup, and I swear my dog stopped barking at the corners, she'd said. I didn't care. At that point, we'd try anything. Elise showed up in this flowy burnt orange sweater and thick boots, clutching a little pouch that smelled like sage and lavender. She walked into the kitchen and stopped cold. Didn't say a word for a full 10 seconds. Then she whispered, "You have something violent here." Madison and I just stared at her. Elise lit her smudge stick, started muttering things softly under her breath while walking the perimeter of the kitchen. She made strange clucking sounds with her tongue at the corners, waved her free hand in circles like she was testing for pressure. Then the flame on the sage snapped and went out. No wind. No window open. It just died. She froze, looked at us, pale, and said, "I'm sorry. I need to leave." Just like that. Grabbed her stuff and left. Wouldn't even look back. She texted me later that night, just one message. "Don't cook there again. Don't eat there. Get out if you can." That's when Madison broke down. Full on sobbing, head in her hands on the bathroom floor. I'd never seen her cry like that before. Not even when her dad passed. She kept saying, "We didn't do anything. We didn't do anything." And that's the part that hurt the most, the helplessness. We hadn't provoked anything. We hadn't played with Ouija boards or read Latin out of old books. We were just a couple trying to live. And now we were scared in our own home. That night, we slept in the living room with the door to the kitchen duct taped shut. But it didn't help. Around 4 a.m., something started knocking. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Then 3 again. Then faster. Harder. Until it was slamming the door with the force of a grown man, trying to get through. We huddled together under a blanket on the couch, shaking, not moving, not breathing. And just like that, it stopped. And we knew. We couldn't live there anymore. We woke up the next morning to silence. Not peace. Not relief. Just the heavy, dreadful kind of silence where even the birds outside seem like they know something's wrong. The duct-taped kitchen door stood there like a crime scene, untouched. Nothing had moved, nothing had broken. But we didn't feel safe. Not even close. I was calling listings by noon. Told Madison we were done. I didn't care about losing the deposit or breaking the lease. I just wanted us out. She didn't argue, not even a little. That told me everything I needed to know. The soonest we could view a new place was in 2 days. We decided we'd stay out of the kitchen, eat out, and just keep it together until we could leave. Spoiler, we didn't make it that long. The second to last night is still hard for me to talk about. We were sitting in the living room, boxes half packed around us, half watching a movie with the volume low. Neither of us could really focus. My stomach had that low, electric hum of anxiety that never really left anymore. That's when we heard it. A shuffling sound. From the kitchen. No slams. No broken glass this time. Just this slow, deliberate dragging sound. Like someone moving a heavy object across the floor. Inch by inch. We looked at each other, both of us frozen. It was like our bodies knew before our minds did, "Do not move." Then came the creak of the faucet handle turning. Slowly. Loudly. Water started running. Then stopping. Then starting again. Madison whispered, "It's playing with us." Her face was drained of color, her lips slightly trembling. And she was right, it felt like this thing had moved past chaos. It wasn't just angry anymore. It was taunting us. I grabbed my phone and started filming, just in case. Not because I thought it would help, but because I needed proof. I didn't want to ever ask myself if I imagined all of this. I crept toward the kitchen, staying just outside the tape door. The water stopped. Silence. Then, slam. Something hit the door from the other side. So hard the entire thing shook. The duct tape peeled off the frame like it had been ripped by claws. One of the boxes we had stacked nearby toppled, spilling books across the hallway floor. And then we heard it, not banging, not humming, breathing. Deep, labored, wet breathing. Coming from the other side of the door. Like something big, something alive, and close. I couldn't move, couldn't even blink. Then came a sound I will never forget until the day I die. A long, slow dragging of fingernails, or something like fingernails, across the wood. From the top of the door, all the way down to the bottom. I don't remember dropping my phone. I don't remember grabbing Madison's hand. But I remember the moment we ran. We bolted out the front door barefoot, in sweats, down the stairs and into the street like we were escaping a fire. A neighbor across the street yelled something, probably thought we were fighting or getting robbed. We didn't stop to explain. We booked it 3 blocks to a 24-hour diner and just sat there, silent, shaking. The waitress brought us coffee we didn't order. I remember staring at the spoon, thinking how normal it looked, how unreal everything else felt by comparison. That night, we booked a hotel. We never slept there again. The next morning, we returned with friends to help us pack. Daylight made it feel almost manageable until we opened the kitchen. There was water on the floor, not puddled, soaked, like someone had sprayed the entire room with a hose. The chairs were all stacked on top of the table, upside down. One of them was missing a leg, which we never found. The spice rack was again on the floor, every cabinet door wide open. It was like the room had gone feral in our absence. Madison wouldn't go near it. She stayed in the hallway, arms crossed, biting her sleeve like she might throw up. We didn't talk much that day, just packed, fast, like we were defusing a bomb. I left the keys in the mailbox. Didn't call the landlord. Didn't care. We moved into a newer place in Woodside a week later. A smaller unit, sterile and quiet. I didn't complain once about the ugly gray walls or how the heater clicks when it starts. Madison cried the first night, not from sadness, but relief. We never unpacked the fruit bowl that I wasn't planning on ever looking into the apartment again. Not after everything that happened. It was over, and we were out. But there's always that nagging feeling, you know? The feeling that you missed something. That maybe, just maybe, if you'd been smarter, more prepared, you could have figured it out. Maybe you could have stopped whatever the hell that was before it went so far. So, a few months later, I decided to do some digging. Nothing major. Just a little research to see if we were the only ones. The first thing I did was call the landlord. At first, I wasn't going to say anything about the incident. I wasn't even sure what I'd say, to be honest. But after a few awkward minutes of small talk, I asked casually, "So, do you know anything about weird stuff happening in the building? Like, any history of unusual events?" There was a long silence on the other end, the kind where you can hear the person trying to decide how much to tell you. Then he sighed, and that's when I knew. He knew. He said, "Look, man, I don't want to get into it over the phone. Come by the office if you're still curious." I wasn't about to meet him face to face, so I just pressed him more, and after a while, he finally gave in. There's been a few people over the years who've reported strange things. Not much, just strange noises, things moving, that kind of thing. But that place? It's got a history. I told him to stop beating around the bush. He hesitated again, and said, "That building? It was built in the late 1800s. It used to be a warehouse for shipping goods. A lot of people worked there. But there were accidents. People went missing, fell through gaps in the floor, ended up crushed under beams. That place has soaked up a lot of bad energy." I asked him what that meant. He wouldn't say much, just kept talking about bad vibes and how it had always been a cheap place to rent, so people just accepted it. Some tenants never came back after signing the lease. I couldn't get any real details. He just said, "We've had trouble with tenants in the past." It wasn't much, but it was enough to set my stomach in knots. The next step? I dug up the old building permits, the kind of thing anyone can do online with the right tools. Turns out, the building had been through several renovations, most of them in the 1950s and the 1990s. But there was a gap. A long, unexplained gap between the late 1800s and the mid-1900s. And during the time, the building had been inactive, as the records said. It was the only gap in the history of the building. No tenants listed. No work done. Just nothing. I pushed further. The next thing I found was something strange buried in an old news article from the 1940s, a reference to a fire that had started in the building, but not reported in any official manner. It wasn't a massive fire, but the authorities had apparently kept it quiet. There was no record of any casualties. Except one. A name stood out. A man named Henry Clark, a worker who had disappeared during the fire. His body was never found, and some people suspected foul play. The article briefly mentioned that his coworkers had said he'd been pushed into the fire, a workplace accident, they claimed. But the whole story just fell off. Too many gaps. Too much hidden. Then came the worst part. I found an archived building tenant directory from the early 2000s. And in it, there was a name I instantly recognized, a family who had lived in our apartment before us. They had moved out suddenly in 2006, just a few years before we moved in. I called the number listed, fully expecting to leave a voicemail. But to my surprise, someone picked up. I introduced myself, explained who I was, and asked if they had any strange experiences in that apartment. The woman on the other end was immediately cautious. She hesitated, then quietly said, "You're the new tenants, aren't you?" I thought someone would come looking. I asked what she meant, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't want to stay there. The last time I was there, I heard things moving at night. My kids would scream. One night, I swear to God, I saw a shadow move across the kitchen. I had to get out. But that wasn't all." She continued, and Henry Clark, my husband, looked into him. That man was killed in that building. I don't know how, but he was angry. And he's not the only one. It all clicked. The fire, the mysterious disappearances, the strange tenants, the violent energy. The poltergeist wasn't just a freak accident. It was the result of something darker, something buried. A person, or people, who had died violently, trapped in the walls of that building. Their anger, their fear, was still there. And it was coming after anyone who dared live in that apartment. Madison and I were just two more in a long line of people unlucky enough to cross their path. We couldn't escape it, even after we left. So yeah, that's it. We moved out. Never looked back. But if you're ever looking at an apartment in an old building and it seems too cheap, too perfect, too easy, just be careful. You might be getting more than you bargained for. And that's it. The end of the story. A nightmare that didn't just stay in the apartment, but haunted us even after we left. I hope anyone listening this stays safe. And if you ever have to deal with something like this, trust your gut. Get out before it gets worse.